Mark Direen, what facing death teaches you about living life. Firstly, I'd like to thank my friends and podcast sponsors, Samantha and Sean Sargent of State for Men and State for Women, for making this amazing episode happen. This week, I had the incredible opportunity to sit down with Mark Direen, a former soldier and special forces operator with the Australian SAS, turned author, adventurer, and public speaker. Mark's journey from military service to adventuring, public speaking, and writing is nothing short of inspiring. Here are some key takeaways from our conversation that I think you'll find both intriguing and motivating. We discuss the evolution of purpose, identity, and connection. He reflects on the challenges of transition, the value of adventure and resilience, and the importance of controlling what you can in life. Mark offers practical advice on embracing new experiences, maintaining authenticity, and applying lessons from high-stress environments to everyday challenges, inspiring listeners and readers and viewers to live more fully and intentionally. He shares his journey of evolving purpose from military service to inspiring others through adventure and storytelling. We covered things like the importance of adventure, life experiences and challenges, whether it's climbing mountains or starting a new business. These adventures teach us resilience and positivity. Transitioning from military to civilian life, Mark opens up about the challenges of leaving the military and how he maintained his sense of purpose and identity. Control the controllables. A recurring theme in our discussion was the importance of controlling what you can in life. From military operations to everyday challenges, maintaining control over the small things can lead to greater success and safety. Learning from adversity. Mark shares how he turns difficult experiences into positive learning moments. His approach to debriefing himself and extracting lessons from tough times is something we can all apply in our own lives. Getting blown up. Yes, you read that right. Mark recounts the harrowing experience of driving over an IED and how his training kicked in to keep him from functioning in a life-threatening situation. And travel safety tips. For those of you who love to travel, Mark offers practical advice on staying safe abroad, from getting travel insurance to learning self-defense and maintaining situation awareness and everything in between. Mark's journey is a testament to the power of resilience, adventure, and living authentically, and I hope you enjoy our chat as much as I did. You can connect with Mark on Instagram at Mark Direen. The links are in the show notes below. Click on those, and his two websites, markdireen.com and pointassist.com.au. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator, subject matter expert, and the How Not to Die guy. And you're listening to my podcast, Straight Talk Mind and Muscle. This episode is proudly sponsored by these guys, State and State for Women, because aging is inevitable, but how we age is a choice. State is the ultimate daily formula for optimal health and longevity, backed by clinically proven 100% natural ingredients that's designed to support hormone health, stress resilience, energy, and performance. And I use it every single day. And a special thanks also to my new sponsor, Michael Mason and the Mason Survival Protocol. Links to both of these are in the show notes below. Catch all my past episodes and resources in the notes as well. Thanks for watching. Now let's get into it. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Welcome to my guest, another Australian this week, which is nice with the time zone. Mark Direen, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Look, you've been recommended by Sean from State quite some time ago, so my apologies for taking so long to connect, and I'm excited to share your story and learn about you as well.
Yeah, cheers. I mean, it's good to be on, and I'm certainly a big advocate for more people sharing the experiences they've had. So it's great to be here and share a few with your listeners.
Well, that's where we're going to kick off, and I've got a few notes. The first one I put down was purpose, identity, and connection. Now, to give you some context and possibly the listeners, I interviewed Todd Bowler, a good friend of mine here in Perth, many years in the SWAT teams here. They've got names. The one here is the TRG.
Yeah.
And we talked about a name that showed purpose, identity, and connection. And we liken that to a three-legged stool. You lose one of them, it gets a bit wobbly. Lose two, not very good. Lose three, it's a bad day out. And I've interviewed some of the operators and some people that have been in that bad space when they lose all those three. But you've got an incredible background from the military to special forces with the Australian SAS to where you are now adventuring public speaking and so on. That tells me your purpose has changed a lot. So I'd like to know what your purpose is now. Some of it is defined on part of your website. What's your purpose now? And then we're going to go back and unpack how did it changed and how you evolved through that.
Yeah, I think my purpose now, which is probably in line, I should have thought about this before I came on the podcast, which is probably in line a little bit more with speaking, writing a book, uh, and still help and still working with other people a bit, um, is literally sharing the value of experience.
Mm,
Uh, I mean, your purpose is, as you just said, mine's changed over the years, and it definitely has. When I left school and wanted a job, my purpose in life was literally just to go out on a big adventure and do stuff. And after a couple of years in the military, that kind of evolved into service a bit. Like my last years in the military, it was literally I felt my purpose was to serve my country.
yep.
But 15 years later, 10 years later, my purpose now is really getting a bit older. So I still want to, but I'm still capable. So I still want to go out and collect as many as my own experiences as I can. But I still give back, I suppose, by showing other people how important it is to go and get experience in life, to go and do stuff, just not live that boring mundane life, never accepting a challenge, never seeking any adventure. I think those things are important, and we learn a lot from them.
It is, and sometimes you only need someone to just show you that it's you're capable of that. I mean, Todd that we spoke about, he's just a retired cop. If we just put him on paper, last year or a year before, he achieved a world record. He was a 1 mile burpee long jumps in sand on the beach, and he's got the world record. I mean, someone just showed him that that was possible. So sometimes it only takes a little bit of impetus, maybe just reading a little bit of what you've written, maybe just seeing a bit of one of your videos or seeing a photo of you on a mountain, and that may inspire someone to live an authentic life and say, hey, I might be able to try that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the experience of achieving that record, it's a lot more than the last minute of, the last couple of burpees,
Yeah.
which could potentially be the crowded hour that I talk about. I love the term, but that defining moment that's been years in the making. And it doesn't have to be summiting Everest or achieving a world record, winning a gold medal at the Olympics. It could literally be starting a business, and after that first couple of years, it becomes self-sustaining. So the experiences that you get in life can be quite diverse and varied. But it's, accepting the challenge of doing something that's difficult and applying yourself to get to your actual goals. And it's all the stuff that you learn along the way. I mean, the endurance that you would learn to get yourself in a physical condition to be able to do a mile of burpees is, yeah, burpees aren't easy. So you get a lot in that on the way, on the journey, I suppose. Yeah.
And it is about that, and I think that's one of the parts that you embody is enjoying the journey. I say to people when I hear they're going to go for a run or they're going to do an event or something like that, I always say enjoy the view, because that's what I used to do when I was doing long distance stuff. You got to enjoy the view, otherwise you just see one foot in front of the other, which was probably us in our selection days as well.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was working as the best example I've got is when I was working as an adventure guide in Tassie, and I was taking people hiking in the mountains, in the Southwest National Park around the rural wilderness of Tassie. There's no one out there. It's actually quite challenging with mountains and weather and things like that.
Mm.
Most of my clients would come to me because they knew I was an ex-SAS guy, so they could ask me questions about survival and things like that. But it was generally to come and climb a mountain. They maybe never climbed a mountain. They were a bit of a beginner and they wanted to achieve that one thing. Funnily enough, over the years, the most notable and most memorable trips were all the ones where we didn't actually achieve our goal of summiting a particular mountain because it was, the weather was against us or
Yep.
whatever it might have been. Uh, so yeah, that just to me highlighted, quite often you get more out of the trips where you maybe just bit off a little bit more than you could chew. Yeah, safety aspects, you've got to be careful, but yeah, the journey's a bit of a weird word, but it is about the experience more so than sometimes just the goal at the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't just want to tick the box. You want to actually have overcome adversity. I mean, the adversity could be just summiting it. That could be the one. But overcoming the hassles. I mean, a lot of people don't realize special forces, all that fancy stuff, jumping, roping, all the stuff. That's just so we can get to work. Other
Yeah.
people get in their car and they drive, but that all that fancy stuff is so we can get to work and then do our job. So that's sort of where we learned uh, the challenge of putting your body on the line, your brain on the line, and being able to turn up at the start line, wasn't it?
Yeah, they always say it's the little things, the one percenters, and you do all the 1% as well to get to somewhere like operational in an SAS squadron. It's years and years and years of training the one percenters to be able to eventually put it all together. Lots of other experiences are similar to that in life.
Well, that's a perfect segue into again that purpose, identity, connection. I'm intrigued, and I was trying to get an angle for this show, and the angle for me, Mark, is how did you go from being an SAS soldier with that purpose, identity, connection to where you are now, and how did you regain that purpose, identity, connection? So let's talk about what it actually is like in the special forces for purpose, identity, connection for you. What was it like being in an operational squadron, going overseas and doing missions?
Um, yeah, good question. I think like from a really young age, literally leaving school at 17, I initially, my first, and I can still remember it today,
Mhm.
my first thought was that I've got to go and get a proper job now. Like I need to be able to pay the bills and spent time. I didn't ever think I was going to be a rocket scientist or anything like that. I was actually planning to become a motor mechanic because I loved trucks and cars and bikes.
Mhm.
To me, that was a proper job, get a trade, get a skill that you can fall back on your whole life. And then I had this sort of moment at around the age of 17 where I went, oh, you know what? But what I really love is a challenge.
Mhm.
Um, and I love adventure. I grew up with my father taking me fishing off the south coast of Tassie and hunting, and we were always outdoors. So I enjoyed the challenge of that, the wilderness. And so then I eventually just made this split decision at 17 to join the army just for a couple of years because I think it'd be challenging and it'd be adventurous.
Yep.
I then never really turned back. I never got this mad goal that I wanted to achieve. I just kept picking the next thing that seemed like adventure and challenge to me. Yeah, stayed in the military for a long time doing that, but then kept doing it as I got older and got out of the military.
And what was it like being in the special forces? And I'm obviously this is for the listeners and viewers. Purpose wise, and what did it feel like identity wise? I mean, I know what it's like when you go through and swipe that card, and you're in civilian clothes. But for the listeners, what was it like being in that unit for that long period of time?
Yeah, and the three of those, the purpose, identity, and the connection as well, really, they were all gifted to me.
Mm.
So I'm still today hugely grateful to the military for those things. I very quickly got the connection. My best friends in life are still those guys that I served within the military for a lot of reasons. But you get given that connection
Hmm.
whilst, you know, achieving your purpose. So selfishly, yeah, I got lots of adventure and lots of challenge and got to travel and see weird places and all that. But at the same time, I was also and still am a big believer in service,
Mm.
and probably service to your nation uh, is one of the best um, one of the best ways that you can serve, upholding not just your values, but your nation's values, and giving people their freedom by defending them. Yeah, I believe that strongly, and so that gave me purpose, and it gave me identity,
Hmm.
I suppose as well. Mm.
I love that answer, and the reason is quite. Oh gosh, I was going to use a fancy word, but I shouldn't because I'm just a fireman and a former operator. It's quite relevant in the modern few months with some Green Berets and Delta guys showing that massive lack of integrity and lying about their service when they actually didn't need to. They're actually heroes in their own right. Tim Kennedy, UFC fighter, a decorated war veteran, John McPhee, former Delta Force. You talked about your identity being connected to service. There's probably wasn't a little bit egotistical from on the face of it. So it's really nice to hear the mindset of New Zealand SAS in you, that it's there to serve others. And that was my job, was saving to rescue the hostages in the black role. But even the Sergeant Major of the Army, former Sergeant Major of New Zealand SAS, William Moffat, his job is to serve others. And I think that's what people like us do. That then, Mark, can cause issues leaving. And our mutual friend, Nick Caldwell, 2011, he left SASR, the Australian SAS, and he stated in the show that transitioning out of the military into civilian life was harder than war. Would you agree with that, or could you? And if you could elaborate on what it was like leaving SASR and going into civilian world, purpose-wise.
I don't think he's wrong. I think if you are discharging from the military, and probably just to pick up on your point as well to start my answer, yeah, I believe in service and doing good.
Hmm.
But yeah, there is still that give and take. You are getting so much from the military in those experiences and adventure and mateship and all those, and all that connection and purpose and identity that you talk about. If you are just to drop all those in the one, you lose your connection because
Yeah.
you move back to your hometown, which is actually remote from all your friends,
Hmm.
and former colleagues. You lose your identity because you're no longer in that unit, and you lose your purpose. You're no longer, protecting your nation.
Hmm.
But to have to restart all three at once, it's overwhelming for some
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Uh, they're just flat out trying to rebuild some connections, which they struggle to do because they want the connections that they used to have, and then that's hard to get if you're not in the same environment. So
Hmm.
super difficult. 100% believe that. In a lot of ways, uh, fighting on operations or something like that, doing a trip to Afghanistan, it's very simple in the fact that you just got to focus on your job and the moment. For me, I'm a little bit different in the fact that I had this really weird gradual withdrawing
Mm.
from serving in the military. I just literally thought to myself, well, I suppose it's time to get out. I'll go do something else. Totally broke the big rule where everything was unplanned. I'm a big believer that, yeah, if you're going to thinking about discharging from the military, start your planning a year or two in advance.
Yep.
Um, I did none of that. I just put my discharge in and got out. I had a mate of mine who was working in Afghanistan at the Australian Embassy, and he said to me, "Well, while you're working out, while you're trying to decide what your next thing is after the military, come over here and do a few deployments with us as a safety consultant at the embassy." And I did that and kept doing it for 6 years, working on the circuit, working as a contractor in war zones, traveling on a civilian passport. Very different to the military.
Yeah.
But those three things you've been talking about, with your connection and your purpose and your identity, it's not a huge shift. You've still got this purpose. I was still working for the Australian government, so I still had um, this warm and fuzzy inside that I was still, serving my nation.
Mm.
My purpose had shifted slightly. It was to now keep people safe by staying out of trouble. That was fine. That's a great noble thing, is to keep people safe. And at the same time, I was working with a whole bunch of ex-military guys who were, some of them had been my friends in the military. So was still keeping connection. So I had this gradual change. It wasn't until only really maybe a couple of years, maybe about 6 years ago, a few years before COVID, that I stopped doing the teams on the circuit, that I had to purposefully manage my connections. But a lot of my clients that I was now working for my own business, getting my own clients, maybe as an expedition guide, taking, mining company community liaisons people to weird and wonderful places around the globe. I was no longer working with teams, so I had to make sure I actively tried to manage um, my connections with my family and mates. I was still away a lot,
Yep.
but I still had purpose in keeping people safe.
Hmm.
I still had a bit of identity, which I managed. But it's no longer given to you either. You've got to develop it a bit yourself. And I love the freedom of that. Like, I never even thought about it when I was in the military, but once I got out of the military, that identity, I was able to shape my own identity, which I love the freedom of. Yeah.
Thank you. That's the answer, or the yeah, it's the answer I'm looking for to expand on. You had the freedom to shape your own identity. What creativity, what was that spark, and what direction were you going to shape it?
Yeah, creativity is the right word. I think a lot of military people in general, but especially, you know, special forces guys, they're very creative. They're good at, that problem solving, coming up with quirky ideas to
Hmm.
fix that drama that's there. Um, there's that. Being creative is super helpful. The other couple that I think military guys often have a lot of is just that positive mindset. So to go and fight in a war, I think you got to be generally a pretty positive person, that
Hmm.
you're going to get through it. To be able to go and apply yourself to those big problems. So, a bit of positivity and a bit of inquisitiveness. If you're in a job today that you don't find any purpose in, that you don't enjoy, you're dragging yourself out of bed in the morning, hating life, well, then you've got to be a little bit inquisitive to try new things. You don't necessarily need to quit that job and not be able to pay the bills, but go and, you know, maybe do some training in a field that you've not experienced, to see if you like that. Uh, keep searching, keep looking for that new thing that you do find, have some passion for, and feel some purpose in. Yeah, be inquisitive.
You're a bit of a kid at heart, and like a 17-year-old in a skilled man's body, I think, Mark.
Absolutely. Yeah, my wife tells me that all the time. I'm just a kid.
So, I mean, again, from your website, and listeners, we'll put this in the show notes. Your purpose to inspire others to live authentically and fully by sharing my experiences, so they can reflect, grow, and embrace crowded hours living without regret. That's just carefreeness. That's just a kid enjoying the moment, and so on, and then showing that. When you were saying um, you're talking about positivity, talking about uh, that person in the 9 to 5 job in a dark place. I was wondering, and I think I know the answer, it's pretty clear. Have you ever felt sorry for yourself through that time? Did you did you have to drag yourself out of a dark place, or was it always, hey, I'm inquisitive here. What can I do over here? And looking for the next thing to step onto.
Um, I've had dramas and troubles in life,
Mm-hmm.
the same as everyone does. I mean, life isn't easy. It's not all smooth sailing. But I was talking about that moment when in life where went from trying to become a motor mechanic and looking down the barrel of a 4-year apprenticeship and
Mm-hmm.
a lifetime of under the hood of a car to, you know what, I'm just going to go join the army because I love being out bush and I love adventure and challenge and things like that. So I did that.
Yep.
Uh, and that was my military career. Oh, what's that course? What are those guys doing? Oh, I might try and get on that course
Yeah.
to do that, which is I'm a little bit different to a lot of SAS guys in the fact that when I was in the first joined the army, I was a scout in a rifle platoon in 1RR.
Yep.
So you're a company line infantry soldier, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
But I could see recon platoon, and that looked interesting. There were these guys off on their own working in 5-man teams.
Hmm.
So I set my sights on doing that course and getting posted to that platoon. And the SAS was no different. Once I got to recon platoon, and then I did a short stint in the battalion sniper section. Um, that was kind of this general progression where people that did those things that I'd done did SAS selection. And so I thought to myself, well, I'll give that a crack. Not for any other reason than I'd like to see what it's all about. I'd like to
Hmm.
see if I'm capable of getting to the end of that selection course. And so I just did that, and I did that through life. So I've never really felt sorry for myself. I've made some big mistakes in life that you have to live with the consequences for the rest of your life. But I don't really feel sorry for myself. I just try and fix the mistakes, I suppose, and keep looking for the next cool thing to go and have a crack at.
I know it's a tough question. I did put you on the spot, and I've done it a bit, and probably will do a bit more today. It's just the way this one's going because you're such a, as you said, not the standard SAS sort of archetype, and I wanted to get these raw answers out of you so the listeners could grab onto those little bits of gold. Two things. Well, first off, thank you for answering so honestly. Two things from that. One, I actually remember now we were in East Timor at the same time. We were there for the first elections over.
Yeah,
We were sitting on a schoolhouse in an APC at that time, and I think I heard in one show that you were there for the first elections as well when it occurred.
yeah. I spent a bit of time around Maliana, around the
Mm, yep.
region there. Yeah, it was a super interesting time, and I've been fortunate over the last couple of years to go back to Timor, and it was amazing to see uh, the difference in the place. It's actually not that easy to see, I don't think, um, the change in the infrastructure. Like there's some subtleties there. There's some new buildings in Dili and that type of thing. Some of the roads are better, but it's actually hard to see the big difference after 25 years in infrastructure, but you notice the difference in the people. When I went there at the start of 2001 for my 6-month trip, the Timorese people were very much, thanks for coming to save us.
Hmm.
Like we've been struggling for so long.
Yep.
Now they're very patriotic and they're very welcoming to say, hey, welcome. Um, Come in, feel at home and come and have a look at our country. So there was this that they don't, they're certainly not, what's the right word? They don't, you don't go over there feeling like you're saving anyone. You're feeling like a guest in someone's house. They don't need people's help so much anymore, if that makes sense. That's the perception I got. So it was very interesting
That's
to see.
great. I mean, that was the whole point of the air quotes independence.
Mm, yeah, they've certainly embraced their independence, uh, and and from what I could see when I went back there, really doing well.
That's awesome to hear. We had 3 days leave in the 6 months in Dili. Um, as you know, it's a bit different than where we were in the Highlands. We were in Lolatoy, up at a little fire base called Gate Pa, that I think was next to Maliana, and we were saying here in 15 years' time, this will be a tourist destination like Bali. And it's really nice to actually hear firsthand from you the difference that that intervention for a small a couple of years has made.
Yeah, I mean, I've already started talking about going out and seeking, getting those life experiences.
Yep.
East Timor today, because it's not well developed, you can go up into those mountains, sort of between Suai and Maliana.
Yep.
You're in a mountainous region. You could go for a hike, you could go for a motorbike ride, or just full drive in to visit a village. they are amazing experiences. You're not only learning about that country there, you're learning about yourself, overcoming all the difficulties of getting to a place like that. Yeah.
Oh, the terrain was outrageous. Our fire base was 1,100 meters high. We were parallel to the highest point. I can't remember
Yep.
what it is. We called it retrans because that's where we put the antennas. Um,
Yep.
but in our covert patrols, we go down into the valleys, and you knew you had to. You had 50 kilos on with the water and so on. You knew you had to get back out 5 days later, up those same hills you've gone back down.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some steep. I mean, I went for a little hike. I remember all that in 2001 as well. Packs were
Mm,
heavy because I some of the time I was there was the dry season, and
yeah.
so you're carrying heaps of water, 12, 12, 14 liters of water, and a bit of ammo, a bit of sleeping gear, food, radio batteries, whatever you had. Yeah, packs were heavy and the mountains were steep. But I even when I went back there recently, uh, just did a hike for a couple of days up to their highest mountain. The locals actually sort of pilgrimage there quite a bit. But that was 3,000 meters above sea level as well. So
Wow.
that's yeah, they've got some good mountains in Timor.
It's yeah, those formative, not formative years, but formative experiences, because it doesn't matter about what years they are, they really do make a change. And that changed me so much and pushed me towards where I am now. I guess that's a bit of a transition into what you were saying. This isn't a veteran show. I literally interview the top people around a bunch of different subjects, professors and sports people and so on. But from the operators, and also I do think the sports people, the retirement, as you said, literally day zero, I'm going to go and work in an office and not have body armor and some mates around me. That can be pretty hard. But from what I've talked with the operators about or the veterans, um, the slower transition seems to be pretty clever. I'm thinking back to DJ Shipley, a SEAL Team 6 guy and co-owner of GBRS Group. I'm thinking about Pat McNamara, former Delta Force operator. They went into the tactical space of some kind. You went into close protection and advising and so on. And if you sort of, I guess, transition during that, and then during that, figure out where you want to be. It's not such a culture shock to the psyche. I suggest. I think on reflection, thinking out loud as I talk, that's probably the way to go. That I've seen successful people on the other side do well at, Mark.
Yeah, I agree. I think the goal, I think not the goal, I think the key is that slower transition, like you say.
Mm,
But yeah, it's the common sense part is yeah, and the slower transition is do a bit of planning. Um, be in control of your transition, do it a bit more purposefully. That might be doing some study and getting some new skills and looking at the area that you're going to go to for any, I think, probably big career transition, doesn't matter whether it's emergency services, military, or whether you're going to go from the finance sector into a tourism job, bringing all that planning and chasing of new skills and qualifications over to the side where you're still working in the industry that you're comfortable in. That's the best idea. So if you're a military guy or an emergency services person, um, going, well, I'm going to discharge in 2 years. I can keep doing this job and at the same time do a bit of study or do a bit of planning, start my new small business I want to do. If you can do that before you no longer have that income, life's going to be a bit more, it's going to be a bit easier. You're still going to be able to put food on the table and a roof over your head. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. And that I was going to ask the question, what would your advice be? And that's literally it. Um, yeah, super important to get ahead of that. When you've got the choice, I was lucky enough to interview Paul Baxendale, a former training partner of the bodybuilding champion Dorian Yates, and he had a career-ending injury. One day he's a huge bodybuilder with gyms and trophies. Next day he's in a hospital bed in a wheelchair, and he had to find what he was going to do. Eventually, end up with a master's in psychology, literature, and history, and so on, which is beautiful. But when you do have the choice, let's get ahead of it. Let's be inquisitive, like you're saying. Let's be. There's no reason to be negative. Let's look at the things that are out there and try them and see where they fit.
Yeah, and it's very similar, or there's a lot of similarities between, that mad career transition or some epic adventure that you're on, summiting mountains in remote places. The more in your world that you can be in control of, the safer you'll be. Um, and so you can, yeah, if you can keep yourself, if you can be in control of keeping yourself dry and good at navigating, so you don't get lost, and you can do epic things in the wilderness and stay safe doing it. And it's probably the same for your transition career wise or whatever it might be. The more little things in your life that you can stay in control of, uh, the better off you'll be, the safer you'll be, and probably the higher performing you can be as well.
That's
Mm.
awesome that you answered that. It wasn't really from a question. It was more a statement you said. Two reasons. One, Ollie Ollerton, former SBS, and he is one of the stars on SAS Australia, I think they
Yeah.
call it here. His quote is control the controllables.
Yep.
Totally agree, and that's what you and I taught her. I had a question. Gosh, I made some pointed questions up, and I hardly ever do that. And it was going to be, why should we listen to an SAS guy? Why should we listen to a guy that's trained to shoot people in the face, go to war, about authenticity and so on? But you said it there. If we can control all the little things so that the outcome is probably quite predictable, then we're going to be able to create that life. So I think that's why someone like you, people want to listen to you, people book to see you speak, people buy your book and learn, and people do want to go guiding with you because those things they can see you can help them with. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I mean, the authenticity is a big one for me, and it's not easy for anyone. I mean, to be authentic, you got to know who you are to begin with, which is
Mm.
not easy these days when you're bombarded by media from all directions. So that's the first thing. You got to spend time contemplating and understanding what authentic looks like to you without
Mm.
any restrictions. And then, yeah, you've got it, talking about the control piece. You've got to be in control of all the variables in your life. If you believe something, but you can't say it because it's not the position of the place where you derive your income, well, then you're going to have to compromise on on a small piece of your authenticity. That doesn't mean you need to change who you are, but you you're not in control of that little bit. So yeah, the more you can be in control of in your life, the more it allows you to just be your authentic self. Um,
And going back to the special forces side, that was what we just did. We just did the basics really, really well. Um, and you keep running this through in your head. So you do it right, do it right. And I'll never forget one of our instructors, a legendary New Zealand SAS guy, um, would say, do it once, do it right. And that's what is expected. And that's why we operate and can operate. And you said it before, can operate at a high level.
yeah, we would definitely control what we can.
Mm.
Uh, and if there's anything that's dangerous to us being in control, whether it's radio batteries going flat or the enemy or the weather or whatever it might be, if there's something we can't control, we plan around it going wrong so that we can potentially, regain control as quickly as possible. And so we do a lot of training and a lot of planning, what if style planning that allows us to regain the control of any situation.
That's
Yeah.
the perfect segue to something that you said before we started filming that you'd be happy to speak to about is safety. You were in Kabul, you were running safety for the Australian Embassy, and travel safety is super important for many people. Most people don't know about it. We talked about situational awareness again off camera. Travel safety. What would be some tips you'd give to the civilian wanting to go on a holiday? So I can actually give an example. One of my good friends, she is having to travel to, um, overseas for business. I've forgotten the first country. The first country was safe, but then the company might be diverting her to Sri Lanka. So I'm thinking I'm going to be putting her in contact with some friends, but that may be a possibility for a straight up civilian female, not trained and skilled. So people going overseas, just the average civilian. Let's talk a little bit of travel safety. What do you think are some things they can control that they're in control of that is going to make life a lot simpler for them and maybe keep them out of trouble?
Yeah, understanding that you can probably control more than you think
Mm,
is a big one. Just not leaving your safety to risk or chance. And the classic is right at the start. Did you get travel insurance or not? Because
great,
it's one of those ones that's going to get you out of trouble. When we're in the military, we've got the Australian government and it is our and all our teammates is our travel insurance. But once you're out, you don't have that. You don't have anyone coming to your rescue. So if you have a spill on a motorbike or get crooked, you're going to want an evacuation plan, and 9 times out of 10, that's that insurance.
great.
Understanding that, and I think a big one, I think it's one I've heard you touch on in the past too, that yeah, learning self-defense it can be a great tool, but it's a great tool for when everything, 100 other things have gone wrong. You've
Exactly.
missed a lot when you start to need that. So I don't know where I've come up with the percentage, but I always think of that physical self-defense is like the last 10%
Yep.
of what you should be spending your time on getting good at, because it's everything, it's the other 90% that is going to lead you to not have to
Exactly.
be in a physical confrontation. So learning how to stay in control, to staying composed when you're out of your comfort zone, uh, learning good techniques to maintain your situational awareness, getting into good habits, and all that type of stuff. Yeah, there's some technical skills around planning and what hotels should I look at, and uh, do I actually know where to get the taxi at that airport, because there's lots of fake, um, dodgy taxi drivers,
Yeah, exactly.
rideshare drivers or something. Knowing the actual skills is super helpful, but just being good with awareness, understanding how to work within foreign cultures, having good situational awareness, and it's not just being uh, aware of what's happening around you. It's being able to comprehend what's happening around you. What does, I can see that person walking towards me, but what does that mean?
I was about
Um,
to ask you the exact question related. What if you you see sense or see a red flag, air quotes red flag. What if you think something's going wrong, but you know how civilians are? They're like, oh, but I don't want to be impolite. I don't want to seem weird. What if you have a little sense that something's just a little bit off? That taxi driver's not quite right. That person walking towards me is not quite right. What's your advice in general there?
yeah, I mean, the big one is it's okay to say no.
Oh,
Yeah, 100%. Are you ever going to see this person again in your life? Very unlikely. Just be polite, say thanks, say no. I mean, there's lots of reasons there, appear yourself to be a hard target, have confidence, whether it's grounded in confidence or not, like have a bit of purpose when you walk around. There's lots of little techniques that make you a bit of a harder target. Um, but the one as well, in all the training that I've run for people, the one thing that people have told me time and time again that they think saved them
mhm.
was, I just told that person no. When they was an unsolicited approach or whatever it might have been. They said, no, I'm good, thanks. I don't need any of that. I'm good for a ride. I'm getting a taxi from the rank down here. And they turned and walked off.
Yep,
And then it's very hard to prove that something might have gone wrong, but in their gut, people feel like I might have dodged a bullet there a little bit. Yeah. And I've had examples where people did dodge bullets.
I can believe it, Mark. You're an Australian speaking in 2025. I interviewed Tony Blair, an American. I call him
Oh, yeah,
the grandfather of self defense.
absolutely.
Um, Great guy, 2023, I think. And his quote from all the people he's trained, and unfortunately, they're the ones that have been in bad situations. They all say something along the lines of, "And something didn't feel right, but I didn't want to," and they got creamed, they got assaulted, robbed, or whatever happened. And
Yeah,
you've said the reverse. That same thing. Because you're teaching them, and these people come back to you and said what actually went right. So that thing inside us, that spidey sense, that red flag, whatever you want to call it, it's there for a reason. And you've stated, paraphrasing, take some action. It's okay to say no, and you've empowered that person with a tool, not chopping someone in the throat, but hey, no thanks. Thanks for asking. I'm going to go over there, or whatever the way you say it.
yeah,
What a great um, mix of those two experts that we managed to get that answer.
absolutely. And travels, I always tell people if you can get comfortable being in a culture that's completely different to yours, because that is the most challenging environment in the fact that you can't even interpret what people's body language means because
Mm,
they've grown up in very different culture to your own. And I don't mean traveling from Australia to New Zealand or Australia to America. I mean going from Australia to Cambodia
yeah,
or Africa, going to the Congo or something like that. Once you get to those cultures where these people are just very different to me and how I grew up, anything I do could be insulting. Uh, when they're being threatening, I mightn't even realize, because as you know, we try and study body language a little bit so we can spot the threat before it potentially eventuates and things like that. If you're out of your culture, then you're probably not going to spot it. So how do we then interact with the environment we're in, uh, seeing amazing places and meeting really interesting people that we know nothing about, but doing that safely is takes a little bit of skill. Yeah,
it does. And if you haven't got the skill, ask someone with a skill and try and learn from them. We learned from Ollie Ellerton, controllables. That was a quote. You said the same thing in a different quote, and somebody else might have that soundbite in their brain that you've given that person that didn't have the skills. So that's the whole point of these shows, that we give something to someone that they can use that might help them in some way.
yep,
I guess
yeah,
that I guess that pushes on to what you're doing now and a little bit of your past. You've got a great book out. You've got Point Assist, and you're doing your public speaking now. Maybe you could talk through the book and what you're doing with your speaking career and so on, so that people can find out and actually get in touch with you deeper than just listening to us on the show.
yeah. I mean, the book I found really interesting. It was not by accident so much, but I kept running expeditions through COVID. So I found myself locked down in Sydney hotels, um, 3 or 4 times. I think I did maybe 6 or 8 actual hotel lockdowns at different times,
Wow.
Indonesia and coming back to Tassie and things like that. Locked in those hotels for a few weeks, I found that going back to my military sort of discipline where I would set out a bit of purpose for each day.
Yep.
And for me, it was a bit of writing. I actually just started writing some of my stories with no real end goal for it, except it was um, I found it enjoyable. I found it challenging. I was thinking about stories that were uncomfortable to remember, all those sorts of things. And it was after a few of these stories, I was giving them to my wife to read. And she said, "Well, what are you doing with all these?" And at the time, I was like, "Oh, I don't really know. Maybe, I enjoy a bit of blogging or whatever. Maybe I'll make some blogs here and there." My wife understands me really well, and she's a much better writer than I am.
Yep.
So she then started editing for me, giving me back what I'd written so that it was a lot clearer.
Yep.
But it still sounded like I wanted it to sound. And then we just sort of kept going like that. I haven't written an autobiography, but I've just literally each chapter's I share a few stories and what I personally learnt from it, from that experience in life. Uh, and so then I just uh, found someone to print it out for me, and I sort of self-published and share them with people. I enjoy it. I think it's worthwhile, and going back to a little bit of purpose,
Yeah.
you you'll be surprised, or I was absolutely blown away by how much positive feedback I got from people because you're sharing a few stories of mistakes you've made. You're making yourself a bit vulnerable sharing them, I suppose, but um, people find it uh, one entertaining to read, but two a little bit inspirational that they'll then go out and do something that's a little bit more challenging, take a risk here or there, um, which will then lead to not having a few more of those regrets in life that we don't want. So the book was really good.
Yeah, sounds great.
The fact that it ended up revolving around that topic that I'm really interested in the fact that what do we get out of experience? Can we make what's the hardest experience we can endure to get the most out of and things like that, and how do we do that? That's what I love to speak about now. And in my talks that I do, I talk about how we learn from experience, whether we set out to get an experience to learn from or not. How do we actually do these things in life that are maybe difficult, hard? There might be failure involved. If you've spent a lot of time in emergency services, there might be trauma sitting behind it or something like that. How do we turn or how do we create positive experiences from difficult moments? Um, because for me, I didn't set out to do that. I'd had some difficult experiences in my military service. And so I found that I spent a bit of time reflecting by myself and contemplating, doing my own research on us as humans, how we react to these difficult moments. And then I suppose piecing it together, I I initially sort of went, well, I'll do what the army taught me. I'll debrief my own
Right.
service.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yep.
I'll do a hot wash of some of these hard times that I've survived, and by doing that, I'll get the positives out of it. I'll take away the lessons that I can learn. I found that there's um, a very similar civilian system where they just talk about understanding the experience, whether that's through the timeline or whatever it might be. So you make sure that you can understand the experience as accurately as possible, uh, and then you reflect on it to get your takeaways. Whether that's your sustains, proves, and fixes, or whatever it might be. But what would I do differently if I did that again? And then the cycle goes round that your next experience is more challenging, more difficult, more epic than the first one. And you keep improving as a person as you go through these different experiences, whatever it might be. So I'm passionate about that, and I love sharing that with people. And you can always share a few good stories about climbing mountains or getting shot at or blown up in Afghanistan. So the talk I find is people generally find it a bit entertaining, but there's so many takeaways in there that they can then use to apply to the experiences they've had in their own life.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's worthwhile.
Gosh, I'd love to come to an event. I've got Nick Caldwell's event coming up later in the year. He does a resilience event each year, which is great. Um, and you just mentioned what my almost my second last question is. You're not just this positive little kid in a very skilled man's body. Gosh, have I just titled you? Um, you, you also guys got blown up. Now again, you and I off camera, we said we don't have to share war stories because it's not that sort of show, which is great, and it makes us both feel comfortable, I think. But I'll never forget a friend of mine, Eric Niaris. He was a tier one operator in. I actually don't remember the name. It's an intelligence unit in America. Funny name, but he was saying, "Oh, we're on this patrol, and I got shot through the calf, and then." I went, "Hey, hey, 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 hey! Probably everybody wants to know what it's like to get shot there. So I got to ask you, what's it like to get blown up?
Oh, as far as getting blown up goes, mine wasn't too bad. I didn't receive any penetrating shrapnel injuries uh, of any significance.
So you guys went over an IED? I don't
Oh
actually
yeah,
know the
drove.
background.
There was ID buried in the road.
Yeah,
Um, I was the patrol commander, and we were in one of our open cut LRPVs
yeah, I know
back
the
when we
ones.
had those. No roof on them. They're gone now. But so we drove over in that, and everyone. There was four of us in the vehicle, so we all got blown out of the vehicle. Yeah, I never, no serious penetrating shrapnel wounds, and I never got knocked unconscious. So they're two big things. I mean, I've still got a few injuries from it,
Mm,
but nothing that's nothing that's made life hugely um, restrictive, I suppose, in a lot of ways. So yeah, I keep chugging along trying to do big things, but yeah, one of the big things that I learned that from that specifically more than all the other skirmishes that I was in is that real moment of time slowing down. I mean,
yes.
people talk about in those real high threat moments, you're getting attacked by you're getting mugged on the street and you've never been mugged before. And, how that time slows down. I literally, in my head, can remember being engulfed by the dust
Hmm.
of the bomb in the road. And as we know, that shockwave from even a low explosive, what's it traveling at? Nearly 3,000 meters per second or
Oh,
something. I
so
feel like
fast.
I can remember just being engulfed by dust, and I feel like I can remember being airborne as I was thrown out of the vehicle and seeing the vehicle a couple of meters off the ground, like having those memories in your mind. Yeah, that was a really long minute. So
I
that was interesting. Yeah.
I've been there in a situation myself where time stood still in a we rolled an army vehicle and basically the initial crash when I got punched out, same as you did. The time slows down and you can also almost move in real time and everything else is going in slow time around you. So you become a little bit, as Dave Grossman says, a little bit superhuman.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the bang. Like the one, it's that massive surge of adrenaline that people talk about, and you don't keep every sense that you are normally running when you're calm
Yeah.
and comfortable. I can't remember anything else except eyesight. I could still see.
Yep.
I couldn't hear. I don't remember any feeling or anything like that. But the other big one that was highlighted to me in that moment and on that deployment, there was a bit of fighting. Um, was, was especially from that safety perspective is when when you encounter those really life-threatening moments where your brain, without you even thinking, knows that this is not good. Like I could get hurt here.
Hmm.
If you've never contemplated it, you've never had any thought process around it, and uh, that's where you get that freeze. Like you may not, your body just won't react because it doesn't know what to do, and everything's happening too fast.
Yep.
You need to think about it. um, and that's where the military does a really good job, because in that moment I was landed, and I was I'd landed 15 meters or 20 meters away from the car, and in my head straight away my thought process is, hey, if this is a complex ambush, I'm going to need a gun to defend myself.
Yep.
And so literally my training kicked in. I went to get up and I couldn't move, couldn't feel my legs. I was sort of a bit immobile. Um, but I knew I needed a gun. Couldn't get my M4, went from a pistol, it was gone. The blast
Oh.
had blown it out of its holster.
Oh.
But my brain knows after 1,000, transitions on the range that it'll be here somewhere. It's on a lanyard.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
literally grabbed the lanyard and pulled the lanyard until the pistol came up, was behind a rock next to me, and sat there with my gun, waiting for the trouble to start. It's like that's that training that you do, so that when the worst happens, your brain will have an experience and somewhere to go to keep acting. Um, Fortunately for me, it wasn't a complex ambush on that day. My teammates in the car behind me put security out and rescued me. They got me medevaced out of the field, sent back to eventually the hospital in Kandahar. But I was looked after. But you know, there was a moment there where I think, due to my training, I was still functioning, which was phenomenal.
Clearly, and you can almost see it as you're thinking about the lanyard. And for the listeners, Mark was gesticulating. That's the one percenters. People wonder why SAS guys have got a lanyard. Like what an archaic thing. A lanyard on what we had Sig Sauer P226s, and why we put electrical tape around it when we're on a aircraft around the little clip. Well, that's the reason why, so that you have control to controllable.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I get blown out of that car and the pistol gets blown out. And it's for the worst case scenarios. And the worst case scenario is a bad guy then is coming to get me, and I've got nothing to defend myself with. And so we're like, well, I can't control whether the bad guy is going to be there or not, but I can control whether I lose my pistol or not. And so let's control that. And the more
Exactly.
stuff you can control in your world, uh, the safer you'll be and the more epic stuff you can do, whatever it is, whether it's business or adventure or what. Mm.
What a great point to end on, because I believe you can take, and it's not just a belief, it's clearly shown by the success of so many former special forces guys going on to help others and their success in their chosen fields, that they can use those same principles to go on and translate those into, as you said, into business or into sporting success or into other endeavors. And so much of it nowadays is helping others, which is what you do as well. Mark, the narrated show notes are at the start. Everybody's heard those, which is great. But at this point, where's the best place to find out more about you, website wise or social media wise? Anything you want to throw out there, they'll be in the show notes to click on as well.
Yeah, Point Assist is probably the best place to find me, but I have a couple of I have a fair bit of social media because I love my photography as well. I still love my
Mm,
travel, and if I'm doing something just for me, I'll often post it on Mark Direen, which is on social media, Instagram
yep,
or whatever. But if Point Assist also has its own projects, I still run activities for veterans and a few other random bits and pieces. So that'll be on Point Assist. But yeah, you can, either website, starting on the website's the best place, either markdoreen.com or pointassist.com.au. And I'm pretty easily found. Yeah.
perfect. Look, thank you for your time. It's been, I think I've covered all the points I wanted to. And really, for the listeners, you can see how someone's experiences, you can learn from those. Take one thing that resonates and then maybe apply it or try it, and be like a kid, and be inquisitive, and find out how much fun it can be out there rather than living that mundane life.
Yeah, keep seeking those different experiences, and I say seek the crowded hour. I mean, they're the real epic moments in life that you're going to remember when you're old and time's got away from you. You want to have plenty of those memories.
Hell
Absolutely.
yes. Hell yes. And you've cataloged them so well with your photography. Awesome, Mark. Well, look, we'll hit pause over chat. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing what you do, sharing people's story. There's a few there in the back catalogue that I'm going to get to now. There's quite a few epic American podcasts you got on there, so that's cool. Mm.
Yeah, good people, and happy to connect with any of them as well.
Oh, cheers.
Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator and former Australian police officer, and your podcast host. Please check out my new project at hownottoDieAguy.com, where I teach everything you need to know to both males and females, at-risk populations, schools, kids, and the elderly, for self-defense, situational awareness, and all-round skills that every good person should know. Thanks for watching.